I want to start out by saying good morning. Thanks for joining us. And my name is Juhi Pomplin. I'm Executive Director for the Alliance for Metropolitan Stability. And if you're not familiar with our work, the Alliance is a coalition of community-based organizations and advocacy groups building shared power to advance strategic campaigns around the intersections of racial justice, economic justice, environmental justice, and health equity. And our mission is to advance justice and equity and economic growth and land development here in the Twin Cities region. So for many years, the Alliance has been hosting the Actualizing Equity event series and has continued to create space for community organizers and aligned stakeholders to build relationships, share knowledge, and strategize together in our work to change the policies and systems that influence racial, economic, environmental, and health equity here in the region. And so today we are focused on small business and economic development, one of the many kind of pillars to our work. And as many of you know, in response to the COVID pandemic and George Floyd uprisings in 2020, cultural and community-based organizations came together to create the what is now the Business Resource Collective to articulate and amplify the needs of small businesses in our Black, Indigenous, immigrant, and people of color communities. And together over the past year, we've worked to ensure recovery and relief dollars are invested in our communities to root and grow our small businesses and have pushed for longer term policy changes that support the economic well-being and wealth building of our BIPOC and immigrant communities. And so thrilled to have 4 people here to lead our discussion around that work. Denise Butler with ACER, Felicia Perry with West Broadway Business and Area Coalition, Elaine Rasmussen with Connect Up Institute, and Tabitha Montgomery with Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association, who have all been significant leaders in the work of the Business Resource Collective. So let's get off of me and let them talk. I have some prepared questions to start us with. So if each of you could just tell us a bit about the work that you do in our community and what has inspired your collaboration and participation in the Business Resource Collective. And if, I don't know, Denise or Tabitha, if you wanted to start.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So thank you, Juhi and the Alliance and all the people who have taken time to join us today. I would honestly say that, you know, as one of close to 70 neighborhood organizations in the city of Minneapolis, our work tends to be very much rooted in this idea of wanting to support community health in a variety of ways. So that's not probably new news to anybody who is joining us today. And it just so happens that Powderhorn Park, I think for the past 5-6 years, we've been striving to do that against 2 pillars in terms of focusing on building connections and then also really looking at different ways that we could advocate for what I would call essential resources in our community to perpetuate that community health. And in service of that latter pillar, we have found and we believe and we have written position statements around what it means to collaborate, to fully embrace the practice of coalition engagement beyond just what sometimes people have traditionally been accustomed to within a neighborhood association as committee work because of the similarities that a lot of small nonprofits, mid-sized nonprofits, certainly community-based institutions experience in trying to support a healthier community or a healthier ecosystem where residents and businesses and organizations can do its best work. And I say that just as a little context to say, we have always most recently been looking for opportunities like the Business Resource Collective because it increases the likelihood that we can shape and influence outcomes for our community tenfold because we're not just one voice. And certainly being the unfortunate epicenter of the heinous murder of Mr. Floyd, which sparked the civil unrest that looked in some degrees positive all the way to destructive, is why we found ourselves being really attuned to opportunities that came to us through the Alliance in terms of even starting out, in terms of making sure businesses in our community, specifically BIPOC businesses and entrepreneurs, were aware of some of the early relief dollars that were beginning to flow into the community at the different municipal levels of government. And as a result, we have found value in sticking in that conversation so that we can contribute to being one of 10, one of 20, one of 50 voices advocating for the resources that I think most people understand deeply that we need. And so grateful for an opportunity to continue to be a part of the group in small ways and hopefully big ways over time.
Very significant ways. Thank you. Denise.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Tabitha, for leading us off. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to be on this panel and sharing space with such phenomenal women doing awesome work in the economic and community development ecosystem. My name is Denise Butler. I am currently the Social Director and Director of Economic Development here at ACER. ACER is African Career Education and Resource, Inc. And for us, it's about access, opportunity for the African immigrant, African American BIPOC communities here in the Northwest suburbs. I myself is very, very personally passionate about community. And I've had this belief in we all do better if we all do better. And because of that is why I thought it to be very powerful in coming together and having a shared agenda on what it means to bring BIPOC businesses resources, to be intentional around the narrative, the language and definition of BIPOC businesses, micro businesses, being intentional around when we're saying these are the resources they need, and this is what it looks like. And the Business Resource Collective have been able to elevate that and do some really awesome kick-ass work here in just the short period of time that we've been together. It's about 20 of us, or 20 or more organizations that participate at the Business Resource Collective. And really looking forward to take this time to discuss that further. But for right now, I'm going to pass it off to Elaine.
Thank you. Again, want to echo the comments. Oh, yes, I want to echo the comments that everyone has mentioned. Being a part of this group and this panel of phenomenal warrior women has just been amazing and spiritually energizing for me. So a little bit about Connect Up Institute, which is powered, it's our philanthropic arm of Social Impact Strategies Group, which is our mission-based social enterprise. But Connect Up Institute is a social finance and enterprise development studio supporting Black and Brown founders across the state in helping them grow their businesses, but also helping investors align their values with their money, and obviously with the purpose and intent of getting them to invest in those Black and Brown businesses across the state. I joined this very similar to the comments that were mentioned already, is that many hands make light work. When you have a representation in a community that doesn't even reach 20%, it requires to be able to move things forward, it requires partnership and collaboration. And I think very similar to other folks, while there is a very deep connection to my own community, being African-American and part Native American, it is through partnership and collaboration that we actually can move the work. No one group can be responsible or should be held responsible for moving the work forward, and it is impossible to do it as a single community. So the change that we want and we need to see must be done through collaboration and must be done through partnership. And the change that we must acknowledge that even though different communities need and require different things, that our outcomes that we are looking for are the same. We want healthy families, we want pathways to prosperity, and we want self-determination. So it was great to be a part of like-minded folks that were interested in making that possible for all Minnesotans.
Thank you, Elaine. Felicia.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Felicia Perry. I'm the Executive Director of the West Broadway Business and Area Coalition. And WBC, we lead initiatives and to bring businesses and nonprofit organizations and our neighbors together to create an inviting and vital West Broadway corridor with a mission to transform the North Side into a thriving economic community. I'm also a North Side resident. I live just a few blocks from work. I raised my children there as well. So there's a type of investment in this work that I've found that translates both through my organization as well as these collaborative partnerships, such as the BRC. And that sort of alignment actually makes it easier to collaborate in the way that we do. WBC, what we do there is build capacity of the businesses and entrepreneurs, as well as, highlighting the positive and cultural assets in North Minneapolis. So we're engaging the community in ongoing revitalization of the West Broadway area, along with the businesses. And so we curate community identified activities that are designed to transform West Broadway into a thriving commercial corridor. These are the things that people want and need. And a corridor that meets the goods, service, and entertainment needs of the neighborhood residents, businesses, and the visitors to our community. Myself, I also, through this work, I serve on as a co-chair of the Business Advisory Committee that's part of that Blue Line Light Rail project that we'll probably hear about today. And then also another collaborative partner, especially over the last almost 2 years now, is the Minnesota Black Business Resource or Black Business Support Collective. And I'm naming that to also name the work that WBC does is in coalition building. And so you'll see that in our participation in the West Broadway Livability Coalition, as well as the Destination Northside Coalition. What I've found inspiring about collaborating and being a part of the BRC is that it's helped me be a part of this bigger movement that's given us a momentum that I haven't been able to see on an individual organizational level for at least myself and several of us I can speak for. And so that's been a really amazing opportunity to participate in something like that. It's also brought a lot of really inspiring benefit where I'm learning a lot more even about intersections of my own community because of the way all of our work overlaps. Really have an intentional focus around the BIPOC community, primarily BIPOC communities that we serve, but also have, a large portion of us have immigrant communities. So I'm learning a little bit more about the intersections of the diverse community of Northside and how to better serve folks that perhaps, WBC hasn't been able to fully serve, and how to make better partnerships in order to have that community-wide collaboration. And so I'm learning some of that also with the work that we're doing at the BRC. Additionally, it's been a way that some of us have been able to fill some capacity gaps, whereas there was a point in time where I, as at the time, one of the few employees of my organization, not able to fully participate in all the advocacy space to know everything going on, whereas there were members of the BRC willing to be able to participate fully in that space and bring that back so we can plan and strategize for all of our stakeholders amongst all of the organizations. So things like that really inspire me to fully participate in a coalition like this because the benefits have been really amazingly cyclical. And I'll leave it at that. And am I passing it on to anyone else, Judy?
Give it back to me. Thank you, Felicia. Yes. And so, with leaders like this, the BRC has been absolutely powerful, impactful, and just keeps the work moving forward. And so I just want to bring us kind of more into more of a discussion, a setting with a new question. That there's definitely, especially in what you guys just shared, there seems to be new energy and opportunities in this moment. And so can you share a bit about what the difference you see in the landscape between perhaps pre-COVID and then the uprising and to now? is it any different? And what is that difference if you think so? But if not, what brings hope then that takes you to the table? In no particular order, whoever wants to respond first.
I'm just gonna keep kicking us off. You know what, guys? I honestly think what happened is that probably for the first time in a long time, not that it's a unicorn, but for the first time in a long time, I think the community in this country and the world felt the inequity. Man, I think people were shook to their core, bothered, hairs on the back of their neck went up. And it put us not in a mindset of believing that the statistics we didn't have and the data of disparity we didn't have, or the truths about what types of businesses are typically in a better position to succeed than other, or what really takes, what does it take for communities to be healthy, as if that recipe isn't already known. No, I think all the data was there. I don't think any of the data shifted. I think what happened is our collective apathy, our collective sometimes being asleep at the switch, fell away. The cloak was ripped off. And one of those things, of course, several of them are the concurrent crises that we still are reeling from, whether it would be a murder being caught on tape that many people have watched for over 8 minutes. I still in this lifetime have not brought myself to do it. Can't, right? Or a pandemic. And the number of people who really lost somebody, not just know somebody who lost somebody, but who lost somebody. And I don't think that even the history books will be able to help us to quantify the weight of that. And it's so on the surface. And I think that that's why there are so many of us looking for ways to partner differently, more deeply, for us to get more quickly on the same story, to disrupt apathy when it comes to where funding needs to go, so that when we're in a meeting with either elected or appointed or philanthropic leaders or residents or business owners, that they don't say, well, who else is saying that? That we are in the position to immediately say, I got hundreds of people saying the same thing. I got dozens of leaders who are already saying the same thing. You need not wait. You need not go back and deliberate. You can write that check now. You're not gonna hear it no other way. And so that's what's different about this moment. I think there is a collective exhaustion. I think that there is a visceral reaction to what we've collectively gone through as human beings. And I think that in very real and meaningful and intentional ways, we are doing our level best to push ourselves to partner in ways that we probably already knew how to do, understand the value of, but are willing to hold a little bit more, even when it feels like we don't know where that time in that room and that space is going to come from.
And I'll just add a thread to what Tabitha was saying, double click on everything Tabitha said. But I think what made this moment so pivotal was, because we've had this before. I mean, I was living in Los Angeles when Rodney King happened. It actually happened right down the street from my home, where I was living in Los Angeles, and the Watts riots, which was, I'm a transplant from Los Angeles. So we've had these instances before. What I think made this different was the fact that people had to sit with it because of COVID. They couldn't just go back to work and ignore or have the next thing populate their time or their energy or their mind. That they had to consistently sit with it day in and day out because there was no place else to go. We were stuck inside. We couldn't substitute. We couldn't be distracted by all the other things that our life would normally distract us with, for good, bad, or indifferent. And very similar to Tabitha, I think this moment allowed us who philosophically believe in collaboration and partnership to take a pause to say, we need to go deeper in partnership and collaboration. All the things that we've been afraid of, the divisiveness that comes externally around pitting us against one another, that we would not and could not allow that to perpetuate. and that we were going to stand united, still understanding that our communities may require different interventions because of the institutional racism that has existed and disparities that exist in our various communities might require different interventions, but that we could advocate for one another by understanding and sharing and learning what those interventions need to be. I can speak because I'm in relationship with another community, while I can speak on, here's what I've been told by my other community member. So I can still be a representative of not just my community, but my collaborators as well, because I have a deeper understanding of where and how I can show up better for them. And it doesn't have to be in subtraction of me or my community, that it can be additive.
So I'll just add, for me, it's really been the authentic intentionality that has happened since coming together at the BRC. We, individually, our organizations all do so many things. And I think from the beginning, in the wake of what was happening, we already knew that, because of the relationship we all hold with our communities, we already knew what was going to happen. And so right away, we were already equipped with the solutions, because again, a lot of these things were happening pre-COVID. All the inequities were there. And like Tabitha said, we already had the solutions. And so therefore, because we're already equipped with some of the solutions, we're able to do some great things in real time to impact the results for BIPOC businesses. Another great thing about, and I always believe with every disappointment, there is a blessing. And that's what happened with the pandemic. And another great thing that came about out of everything was the fact that this is the only table and space where I feel like we don't bring everybody and their mama to the conversation. Right away, this group was intentional in saying, we're here about the business and only the business. Yes, we're dealing with housing. Yes, we're dealing with educational gap. And we're dealing with so many things because, our communities are always just trying to live. And being able to be given the platform nationally and worldwide to kind of bring forward that conversation, it was okay for us to just say, we're going to focus on one thing. And because we're able to focus on one thing and come together as a collective and be able to focus on that one thing, it has been true to our success. And I've just always been excited to have a table that continues to say, this is a narrative, this is why we're here, and we're here for just this one thing, and we're going to knock it out and we're going to get it done. We're going to get the work and do the work and get stuff done like we have in the short time that we've been together. And, we're going to talk more about our wins here soon, but that has just been the turning point for me, and the changing point in all of this for me was the fact that this group came together and has been intentional around what our narrative is and knowing what the outline is and sticking to that and not being caught up in all the other things that are happening.
I wasn't going to add anything. They've pretty much spoken what I would have said on that one.
All right. Thank you. Lots to definitely think about. And I think you all just captured the moment powerfully. Am I muted? No, okay.
No, we can hear you.
Oh,
you know what, Juhi,
go ahead.
On second thought, one thing I was thinking about that shifted in the landscape, so there hasn't just been an openness within this group of the BRC. We are seeing this shift in openness of philanthropy and even some of the various government levels and departments. And I it's allowed us to even be able to articulate to our stakeholders a better understanding of how we can utilize and leverage these particular folks. So that openness to be like, I'm hearing more folks at least be able to admit that we don't know what we're doing and we need help figuring out that strategy. And so we've always, as a collective, asked to co-create what that would look like for the people that we serve, understanding that from our position, boots on the ground, that day-to-day, we're the people they text when something happens, being able to both translate and amplify what their concerns and needs are, but also like really co-create not just a new grant program, but even like some policy changes as we're understanding and building relationships where they're understanding a lot more what the needs are and how they need to, and how they and you all need to reshape how you even do your policy, how you set up your grants, and even the reporting structure, and how do you, the intentional about the language. So I've definitely seen that shift in the landscape to everyone's openness to explore these new, I don't know, I wouldn't even say new, some things are maybe new and innovative to you all, but as Denise said, some of these we've been doing as a microcosm in our work for a while in our communities and seeing some impacts, but without a lot of resources to really scale up what those impacts could be.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. So to Denise's comment earlier, what types of barriers to BIPOC small businesses in creation and development have you been able to uniquely articulate or address as the BRC to policymakers? And in this post-uprising and ongoing COVID moment, what are the most significant narrative or policy openings that you've been able to expand or achieve? So I offer that, just kind of feel free to respond to any of that.
For me, I struggled with small business, the definition that in which the SBA, which kind of sets the standard for what, it means to be a small business. And early on, for the last 4 years, we've been intentional in saying micro businesses. And so what the BRC has been able to do is really, and then also I struggle with minority businesses. And when the pandemic happened, and as grants and stuff are coming out, they're using language already that becomes harmful and it's a barrier. Because who has been able to create the definition of what a small business is? It's been predominantly white, male, folks who have really had the upper hand when it comes to access to capital and startup to be able to create what is considered the definition of a small business. And so we saw that whole definition in itself is the big barrier. And I wanted to address the fact that when you talk about minority business, you put white women in that same category. And so when you're saying that you want something to go to minority business, the bigger picture is we assume you're talking about a BIPOC business, but the reality is it's the BIPOC business, and now white women have access to that same pockets of funding. And I felt that there's a good need for that to be separate. I was bothered by that. And I saw that as a barrier when it came to communities accessing resources. And when you put people who have 500 employees in the category with somebody who has one person, that owner, who are you most likely going to continue to subsidize or provide resources or capital to? Those folks up there with the 100 to 500 employees. And so time and time again, the language may go out there as if it's catering to micro BIPOC businesses. However, when it gets down to the nitty gritty, you're eliminating these folks, but because you're not really considering them. And so I feel like what was very, very important, especially, and I'll name it, the Hennepin County funds that were coming out, because DEED had came out and there was so many mishaps. It started with the executive order from the governor when you name the businesses that are in that executive order, and then you release these funds, naming our beauty salons and our our cosmetology type industry businesses in your order, however, but excluded them when it came to that first round of fundings because of language. Language is important. The narrative is very, very important. And we saw that right away, and we combated that. When it came to eligibility criteria, the first thing this group was able to propose was our narrative and definition around what it means to be a BIPOC minority small business. And right away, we recognizing that loans don't work for folks who've never had loans before. And so how can you want to, in the midst of a pandemic, only provide loans to folks that have never had access to loans before? And so right away, it was like, those are not about to be loans. They're going to be grants. And they need to be more than just $5,000 or $7,500. You know, let's start by giving people $10,000. And I do believe it was instrumental around changing the language and definition of who qualifies and the eligibility criteria. And we were instrumental around the next round of funding, what it would look like, how much it should be, and the necessary support that's going to be needed for our folks to apply for these funds right away, because we were already doing it. You know, like I tell people, it's like you invite people to one meeting, they're going to bring everything in their mama to the table in the conversation. And so being already prepared for that, we were able to say, okay, this is what it needs to look like. And again, I'm going to say number one barrier for our businesses, our BIPOC businesses, is the language and definition out there when it comes to small businesses.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. And so some additional barriers, which are more, I think, philosophical, I think are two things. One, well, let me give a little bit of context. So we have, I think it's over $1 billion that's going to be coming to our state through the American Rescue Plan dollars. And as we've been having conversation with elected officials, what I find is one of the barriers is our elected officials and the people who have access and decision-making around this money are thinking too small, and they're thinking too short-sighted. And what I mean by that is this is a very unique opportunity. I've not seen an opportunity like this in our lifetime to have money coming in to actually build the infrastructure for the future, an equitable future for our communities. And when I talk about that, I talk about how we are currently building to the past instead of building to the future. All of the conversations that have been talking about how to spend this money are grounded in, yes, we need to build more jobs, but are we even actually examining what is a job now? We have the Great Resignation. We have the rise of the gig economy. We have the finally recognition of the power and the economic impact of the creative economy. So what are we calling a job? A job from 20 years ago is not what a job is today. The work structure of punching in and punching out 8 hours a day, that doesn't work for people. And we're seeing that as part of this Great Resignation. People saying, I can't do that anymore. My life does not support that. I have children, I have aging parents I must care for. I cannot work an 8-9 hour job. I need something with more flexibility. So what does that even mean, and what does that look like? If we're looking to support entrepreneurship, are we creating the mechanisms and the framework that allows that to happen? When we know that the largest growing sector of entrepreneurs is Black and brown women between 35 and 55 who have children and possibly aging adults that they are caring for, are we creating spaces for them to grow their businesses that are out of alignment with their structure of how their life is, right? Do we have access to childcare? Can they grow their business and employ people by providing affordable healthcare insurance to their employees, which is all a part of talent attraction? We know that in this state that for our businesses to get, particularly our consumer packaged good businesses, we do not have a small to medium sized co-packing, co-manufacturing or business. So where are these entrepreneurs going to go once they grow out of their house, of making their product out of their house? There's no place for them to go. We have great partnerships with corporations that want to get our Black and brown founders on the shelves, but there's no mechanism to keep them on the shelves. So I think we are thinking too small. We are thinking in the past. We are not looking forward of really examining beyond the election cycle of what we need to put in place to secure the equitable prosperity that we are seeking, that everybody is putting on their campaigns, that are putting on their website. What does that require when we think about moving our workforce into tech? And when I say tech, I don't mean Google. I mean, who is going to fix our driverless cars? Who are going to be able to, where are the solar? How are we getting people into installing solar and making economies around solar and reduced waste? Where is the investment in that? Because putting all of our money into high tech, high growth businesses, I'm not sure is where we should put most of our attention. We need a waterway for people who are going to go in there, and it starts with the young people. And I think that's another part of our misstep and our focus of like, why are we not putting entrepreneurship curriculum in K through 12? Why are we not creating real life work opportunities to match some young people with entrepreneurs to help them grow their businesses? These are the things that we have to be thinking about when we think about the next economy, the new economy, and a restorative economy that actually works for all of us.
Thank you for that, Elaine. Agreed. Yes. I'm circling back, also thinking about barriers that I think the question was kind of what types of barriers the BIPOC and small businesses that we work with are kind of looking at. So I'd also like to mention a huge barrier that's been created intentionally is that barrier in wealth, generational wealth, wealth building tools, wealth building resources, and wealth building knowledge. And those things have been a huge barrier, so that even if a business is looking at getting a PPP, even if they are eligible, right? That's one thing. Their understanding of how to use that and leverage that to potentially actually scale up their business or something like that, or whether or not they own that property is a barrier to so many things that happen in the ecosystem where they're greatly impacted but don't have much authority and space and voice in. So if the conversation around what businesses we support are the ones who receive damage to their building after this uprising, as if prior to that we weren't dealing with months of a shutdown due to the pandemic and centuries of historical and institutional racism and the impacts of that we were dealing with. And now I'm still hearing this focus around the buildings and which business was impacted by the uprising. And so that is always a barrier, that like really stuck moment. And I get it. It was a very traumatizing time that some folks, you know, me, one of them, hasn't had a lot of time and space to be able to process. But what we're needing to do and urging everyone is to, when you're thinking about how things get funded, to get out of that space, because it's not forward thinking at all. You know, West Broadway, which is one of the corridors that was impacted, you know, with damages to our buildings and businesses, you know, we're also, us along with Lowry Avenue, are looking at the potential that a light rail might come down there. And folks are still asking if windows were broken last year, and focused on just those businesses when there are so many that might not have had a broken window, but they had to be closed. They needed their windows fixed and winterized long before. And they're concerned about what the impacts might be of this billions of dollars transportation project that's going to come through the neighborhood. And so that short-sighted thinking where we say, like, we have this language around, like, we want to reimagine something. And there's this group called the BRC that's like strategizing on ways to actually like create that, and doing work to implement that I think that we need to really acknowledge and move more in that space. Because something like this light rail, right? That's 8 years down the line. If we're gonna put stuff like we need to be hiring folks to build the light rail, we're already behind if we haven't started training folks now for, you know, the next 5 years to be actually ready and hireable into a position like that, or to be able to create whatever solar or green energy type of infrastructure that everybody over on North Side keeps asking for when something like this happens, like getting us prepared now, getting businesses and entrepreneurs prepared to take advantage of opportunities we know we're going to be advocating for.
Tabitha, do you have anything to add, or does anybody want to respond to anybody else? All right. So let's look inwardly at the BRC and maybe brag a little, but then go from there to looking into the future, right? So the BRC has already made some notable successes, including ensuring that BIPOC businesses comprise of more than 50% of the applicants to the small business relief programs of Ramsey and Hennepin counties in the last year. And so with the influx of federal dollars that Elaine mentioned and new relationships in institutions of power, what do you see as the most exciting opportunities for our communities, BIPOC small businesses, over the next 5 to 10 years? And I think you guys have already kind of started, you know, anticipating and visualizing, but if you want to go deeper into that, and I would love it.
I think for me, I'm going to just piggyback a little bit on where Elaine started, in the sense of this idea of a healthy business ecosystem. I'm most excited that our group can help to influence and shape what does it mean to have more of a custom lens and approach of services and support systems to small businesses, entrepreneurship, sole proprietorships, led by persons of color, in order for them to actually live their best life, to not only be patted on their back for being a part of the engine that makes this country run, but not always fall into the statistics of what did not work. Meaning we know the numbers in terms of how many actually make it to the 3rd or their 5th year, dare I say, decade of service. What does it mean to be able to access healthcare for your employees or for yourself? What does it mean for a business owner to be able to take a vacation? What does it mean to have access to the right types of capital and financing that does not put you in the position on your balance sheet where it looks like you're only ever going to be digging yourself out of a liability hole and never driving the profit to help support wealth creation for yourself and or your family, that you're leaving them potentially a legacy of debt? What does it mean for us to always be a part of the conversations where we're helping to broaden people with positions of influence and powers, their perspective about how we've been defining things and people over the past century, to where we need to define things and people now that is more related and relevant to how we live and who we are and what we believe and our values, so that the things that we then fund is reflective of our priorities and not our mantras, not our propaganda, not our resolutions, not our proclamations, that then does not tie to the resources to make the change impactful in the communities that we claim we want to be healthy, so that we can stop admiring the social determinants of health disparities and actually move the needle against each and every one of those, because we're willing to fund the right suite of services and systems in order to meet the needs of those who have been left out of the current system and procedures and policies for way too long.
I'm excited about economic inclusion. Economic inclusion, because we all know the success of our communities it's rooted in the success of our businesses. You know, BIPOC communities that have thriving, successful, locally owned businesses are going to be directly correlated to the thriving success of that community, because those businesses are there not only to provide the necessary resources, they're there to support and continue to reinvest in the community. And so as we talk about economic inclusion and community ownership, I'm excited about community ownership. You know, I can already see there's more ownership happening in North Minneapolis. It's around Black businesses are being able to buy buildings. Because the reality is, when the civil uprising and civil unrest happened, a lot of those Black businesses didn't own those buildings. And so when resources continue to be deployed to say, oh, let's address those businesses, some of them are gone. That's just the reality. And when you're saying let's address those businesses, you're most likely addressing a white landlord and giving them money to be able to redevelop their or develop their property, and most likely take advantage of the fact that a light rail is coming and now they can sell it and make astronomical money out of it. And you know, having Black ownership of commercial real estate is important because we've dealt with predatory landlords who didn't want to have leases, who did cash payments with no receipts for their for rents. And so we're being able to strengthen, and I'm excited about this, to strengthen the foundation of our BIPOC businesses to continue to stay in their communities and continue to grow in their communities. It's unfortunate right now that, you know, there's a lot of crime, and, you know, I'm looking at these various cities and they want to put a lot of ARP dollars back into the police. But when we think about public safety, think about your small businesses and how they are core to public safety. Public safety should not continue to be thought about as more police in the community, therefore then the crime rate is going to go down, because statistically, communities that have a high influx of police are still the most highest crime rates. And so let's see where you have less of that, where they're putting money as far as public safety into the businesses. They're supporting more businesses to move into a community. They're providing more resources for businesses to move into community, and therefore are supporting and making the economic benefits of that community thrive, and is supporting and ensuring that that community will be successful. So I as much as we have seen some wins, I just kind of want to highlight that as I'm looking at a lot of states and city, local entities, and where they want to put their ARP dollars. They want to do all the other stuff, but a large amount of them are saying, let's put it into public safety, but not in the understanding in which we want to talk about public safety. You know, it's not funding. I'm not saying you should take money from police. I'm saying just don't continue to just that be the core in which you want to continue to throw resources at a higher amount. But yes, I am excited about different community wealth building models, community ownership models, to provide stability to the BIPOC businesses, to be able to say that when the light rail gets built, there's going to be more of them there. And when the light rail gets built, there's going to be more of them can come to the line and not have the usual suspects like your Starbucks and your Caribou and a lot of franchises. But it's more of our BIPOC businesses will continue to be there when major infrastructure comes, and more of them that can come to this opportunity as well.
Yes, indeed, Denise. Yes to all of that. And like you, I'm really excited about that ownership piece. Additionally, because of, so some of the things that have been happening in, you know, the community in which I serve is that over the years, businesses like WBC, Neon, even Black Women's Wealth Alliance have worked so diligently and intentionally to prepare these entrepreneurs and business owners for various things. They've like built businesses from the ground up, starting some, you know, there's a food business that started in like a kitchen space that was created in the back of a barber shop. And when she got to the point where she wanted to purchase or even lease space right on West Broadway, the inventory wasn't there. The inventory and opportunity wasn't there. Not because there isn't space, but because the space is vacant. and it might be owned by an individual or even a government entity. And even if you could buy it for $1 from the government entity, it's one of those buildings that is in such disrepair that the cost to just renovate it, to get it useful for whatever that business is, it becomes something that these business owners like aren't just having access to. They're not just having access to that capital or even access to a space like for lease. You know, you'll ride down the corridor and see vacant space, but you don't ride down and see a bunch of space for lease signs. So those dynamics, the things that Denise talked about, now I see opportunity for us to help shift that. And it's got to come from multiple levels, right? So these relationships we're building with the city or county, who also owns some of that vacant space on this particular corridor, right? In this particular community, those relationships are helping us reshape like how they're doing that, and how we can more equitably transition the ownership back into community. So as Denise said, these different wealth building models that have been around, right? I mean, we learned through Nexus that like the co-op model, like Black people, we've been doing that for a while. And so how do we now start investing in that, and not just in the education piece? Because I tell you what, our folks, they love to learn. They'll go to a learning space, but getting those tools. And if for generations, they've been literally kept from getting that wealth building tool, like owning a house, which is how a lot of first-time entrepreneurs and business owners are able to finance things, or to continue to finance things, or to continue to build wealth. But just also having those tools, I do see tremendous opportunity for that as we're really strategizing and, BRC co-creating how to implement, both programming and policy changes to help us to that end.
Any other additions or reactions to each other? And this is the portion otherwise that I invite everyone who is here to participate. If anybody has a question, wants to add to the conversation, about the landscape, about this moment in time, hopes, vision for future, please feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or and if we have this influx of people, put stack in the chat. While we wait for everybody to just knock the doors down here, why don't, does anybody want to share a bit about the investment package that the BRC is putting together?
Tabitha?
Oh, Denise, you're gonna get it for that one. You know what, everybody, I think the thing, I'm gonna start here. What is really wonderful is that there's a lot of synergy and alignment across the Twin Cities, I would say, from the various coalitions like BRC that exist, that are advocating and beginning to advocate about specific ways to invest in not only the business community, but the broader community, but specifically in this case, how do we, in this moment, move the needle? And I would say that the things that I'm going to say are not necessarily unicorns or unique, but we're beginning to, in different coalitions, put numbers to what additional things do we need to see in terms of technical assistance? What additional things do we need to see in terms of pathways to financing and through low interest, no interest loans and or grants, pools of grants? What do we need to see in terms of access to infrastructure support, whether it be physical infrastructure or internal infrastructure, and actually to be able to, in a business, based on what you heard from a TA perspective, not just to get trained, but then to have a person within your organization who can do your social media. So it's one thing to, the adage of teach a person how to fish, but then after you teach them how to fish with the camp fishing gear, you leave them with no fishing gear. And that's the same thing. You sit through a marketing training or a TA about bookkeeping and financial management, and then they don't have maybe the right financial infrastructure, CPA or software and other things as a real just practical, tangible example to do the thing that they just got trained on and would like to be better at doing. And I think that this group is going to have to just remind me, I think it's what number we came up with as the BRC in terms of in total as a starting place. But I would say that whether it be small support for small business events and training and technical assistance and infrastructure, what is important is that we as a coalition, thank you, Juhi, 553 million. We as a coalition are not alone in naming significant investment. PPNA has the privilege of being a part of other coalitions, including the Lake Street Leadership Recovery Coalition. And we came up with a number that was a little bit higher at $770 million, right? And so there were many of the same principles outlined in that proposal in terms of where would the money go, and not just for our coalition or our organizations, but with a lens around at minimum 6 different coalitions that typically probably have anywhere between 12 to 20 members who are working in different geographies or in support of different cultural groups and communities across the Twin Cities, that we want to say when we talk about this thing, it's not just because we have our hand out or businesses just need things that they can't have. It's because we actually, through our lived experience, through the support and services we provide, have enough quantitative, qualitative, and anecdotal knowledge to stand firm on the numbers that we're coming up with. And quite frankly, if we're being real honest, is really a drop in the bucket of the type of investment that we need to be disruptive, transformative, and actually restorative to the harm that we've caused with systems that have been in place for way too long, that have left many people out of who we've already named.
Preach, Tabitha.
Y'all can catch me on, I got my own Sunday service at 9 and 10.
Catch me outside. So just adding on that, and I want to address actually Amy's, I think it was Amy's question in the chat of if we could make a suggestion of a change that local government approaches commercial economic development, what would it be? And I think there are 3 things, and some of which has already been talked about, but to put a finer point on it, I think 1, the government, and I'm going to say something, and I want to acknowledge that our current political landscape does not incentivize what I'm about to say. And that is part of the problem. And that is, I'm a big, huge Stephen Covey fan, begin with the end in mind. If we are saying that in our particular departments, whether it be housing, whether it be education, whether it be economic development, if we closed our eyes and we imagined that we woke up in the future and we saw the fruit of the labor that we were sitting around to talk about, to structure, what does it look, smell, feel like? Who's there? What's happening? How is it different? And then build to that, as opposed to building to what I can do in this election cycle, would be transformative. But that requires us to step out of our ego. That requires us to actually, which I realize is not very popular, right? We live in the 24-hour news cycle. We are just trying to do the thing that gets us on the news or off the news in the next 24 hours, depending on your situation. But concretely, I want to bring in a conversation that we were having just before this meeting, which is around real estate. I think there are powerful opportunities that can happen around real estate, not only just developing, I know that the cities and the counties have Black or BIPOC real estate development workshops, but to the point that I think Felicia and Denise made, if there isn't something that comes after that, what are they supposed to do? If there's not a pathway of like, here are a group of properties, who is interested in talking through and thinking through what can be done in matching entrepreneurs or infrastructure projects that will actually support the communities, then what are we actually doing, right? But I think that really looking at real estate is a really it's the low-hanging fruit, right? Because there is so much of it out there. We know that there is a lot of property that is sitting on the city and county books. So this is a great unique opportunity to Imagineer with neighborhood organizations around what are the things that could be anchors to our communities. Is it a makerspace? Is it a co-manufacturer? Is it a commercial kitchen that is not only available to entrepreneurs, but to community? Our communities are losing these spaces to come together for funerals, for weddings, for rite of passages. They need a place to come together. And because with so many of our communities, food and cooking is so central to who we are and how we come together, and we are losing these spaces. So I think there are so many opportunities that are very low-hanging fruit to actually not only restore communities, regenerate communities, but to be able to be that support that I think Denise was talking about, of small businesses actually significantly contribute to public safety. If public safety is your concern, then it is inextricably linked to small business and micro businesses, and getting micro businesses to become small businesses and small businesses to become bigger businesses.
I'm gonna just add to that and reiterate economic inclusion. So when you ask the question, what approaches to commercial economic development? First, you got to say, who do you want it to work for? When approaching the solution is, who do you want it to work for? For instance, in the wake of the pandemic, 25 women-owned business owners, African immigrant women, were able to come together and realize that their lack of ability to have access to quality, affordable commercial retail space was the make or break, or the death of their businesses. As we were dealing with housing evictions, businesses were dealing with evictions as well. And so these women came together and said, we want to be a solution. And the solution is, we need to come together and buy our own building. And they formed a cooperative. It's great. They formed a cooperative, and they brought some money. They've all brought in different pots of money together. But right now, the financial landscape does not support. There's not that real support. I think there's only one bank we can think of in the state that provides money to cooperatives. And so we have to be creative in saying, what does the funding mechanism look like to be able to fund the who we want to fund, to be able to do what they want to do? As we talk about Business Resource Center, don't have a Ryan company come be the developer and own the building and then you put the businesses in there. No. What does it look like for those businesses that are going to occupy that building to be able to own that building? As we continue to want to come up with solutions to provide stuff to BIPOC communities, you don't want them to own it. They live there, they work there, they play there, they should own it. Mm-hmm. You want to come together and provide a funding mechanism that's going to continue to have the usual suspects be able to come together and own it. And therefore control eventually who continues to be able to stay there and who continues to be able to have access to that space. So the first thing in coming up with your solution is, who do you want to help? And then when you decide that you really want to help BIPOC businesses, what does helping them look like? And if nothing currently exists, I get frustrated when I sit in meeting with staff and elected officials, like, how are we going to pay for it? And I only know TIF and I only know this. Well, that means whatever you're looking for has not been created. Let's create it. Because if you really genuinely want to solve the problem, you are going to be able to create the solution. The things that are available now in the landscape, they didn't happen overnight, and they didn't come from Mars and just drop into our lap. We saw that things needed to be created, and so we created it. So if it doesn't exist, that means it needs to be created. That does not mean we don't solve that problem, or we continue to let it just be a problem. That means we come together collectively. And like Felicia said, we're always willing to come to the table and co-create what that looks like. And the investment package that the BRC has created is a great example of what co-creation looks like. And we're very intentional and specific about who we want to help. And so government, you're looking for an answer, it's right in front of you, the BRC. Support and fund what we and many other collectives know are the solutions, because it came from the experts. Who are the experts? The community, those who are impacted, who are dealing with these issues. It's not staff sitting in a building. It's not the elected officials sitting at city council meetings. It's those who are being impacted every day. Those are the experts, and they have the solutions. So fund it. Funders, government, fund it. Be intentional around funding it.
So I know Vameng Ta is on the call as well, who is a part of the Business Resource Collective. Sometimes he has multitasks like his children, and so I'm not sure if he's available to offer any comments, but if he is, I invite you to, as well as anybody else who might have a comment. And I don't know, Felicia, if you have a response to Amy Schutz's question as well about government.
One change to the way local government approaches commercial economic development. One change? No, I'm just kidding. Well, I mean, development is like just big business. I think, just being transparent around how, you can just tell by the numbers. It's just operated, it's benefited mostly white, male, large developers. So, again, start from where we're trying to end. It's been very intentional that that's happened. And I think just really acknowledging that if folks have been in a position and that's continued to happen, then they've definitely benefited in some way, and they're probably part of the problem. And so, and I don't think it's wise to think that someone who has been in charge of something for, say, a decade or two will be the one now to come up with the innovative solution. So just really acknowledging that and moving our, the people who are in positions of power, the election thing gets weird. Y'all just stop making stuff about the election. That would be helpful to communities like mine. I think, yeah, it's just such it's a question where I am mindful of answering because of how development happens. If you know somebody, and not just somebody, if you know the person, then you're good and you're taken care of. Now, we have really amazing new things as a result of this pandemic and uprising, like the 0% commercial loan fund. That one is one of the ones that's responsible for the Zara, Kenya being able to purchase and now rename the Zara, or the finalizing that 927 capital stack. That's something though that Jim Terrell had been working on for like years. I remember he pulled me aside like, I don't know, years ago when he found out that I had a background in banking and he could just nerd out for a minute, and that he's had that vision and he'd been working on getting investment in that for a long time. Now they got a couple million, but we know they need way more. And we need way more Jim Terrells. We need more, and then this is just the city level I'm talking about. I'm just now like starting to feel like there's an established real relationship with the county and even some of these like Senate level folks in response to what happened last year, and them saying they really want to be deeply, deeper relationships. And I'm all about that. Like I said, we coalition build. So we're definitely on that. But yeah, shifting how y'all do y'all relationships, because your friends are getting rich off of us.
Yeah, just to add a thread to that, what I find is I literally just had a conversation with an undersecretary to one of the departments recently. And the whole call was spent on what he couldn't do. I don't need that. I know what you can't do. I need to know, I need you to Imagineer with me on what you can do. Understanding, I've been on this earth for half a century. I understand that there are barriers and limitations, right? But knowing that, where can we bend and break to actually get to, I think to Denise's point, the outcome and the impact that we're looking to have? Who are we trying to serve? What is the vision that we have experienced, heard, shared with the people that we're standing side by side with? And understanding those limitations, be they real or perceived, build to what we are trying to aspire to. So I think what happens is it can be, with the best of intentions, we can get beaten down if we have been in a system for a long time and become conditioned. With the best intentions, be conditioned to the limitations. And therefore, our creative energy and our creative mind to work, collaborate, participate, synergize around solving the problem and creating innovative solutions, that part of our brain has become atrophied just by the nature of not using that muscle. So what I always encourage folks to do, I teach a futurism class, is for you to dedicate find your own journey around innovation, around creative problem solving, around solutions. So you can wake up that part of your brain to be able to come to these conversations and not come from a deficit, but come from an asset. Because we have incredible assets that are not only on this call, in our communities, there are incredible humans. There's incredible human capital in our communities. There's incredible financial capital. There's incredible social capital around our communities and within government. Within our government, we are not tapping some brilliance that is our people who are, we know who these people are because they are on our calls sometimes. They are brilliant and they don't have the space to demonstrate their innovation and their brilliance, even within government, even within philanthropy. So, but that is because they are working with folks who have let that part of their brain atrophy. So I'm asking you to go onto a personal journey around creative problem solving, around design thinking, around understanding innovation. Because when people like Denise and Felicia come to the table with these innovative ideas, that you can understand them, because we are often, as humans, will reject what we don't understand. So we must do our own personal work around understanding innovation, understanding movement, understanding the future, and what is our life going to be like in the future, so that we can be open and receptive to the ideas that are coming to the table that may not be intuitive to us, but it's clearly demonstrated some traction with the folks that are bringing these ideas to us about this is what it's going to take to bring us to the world, the universe that we are trying to build.
So I wanted to address Kate.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Denise. I just want to offer the time check of saying that Vaming would like to make a comment. So if Vaming can make a quick comment, then we'll go to closing comments, which can include Kate's question as well. Does that sound okay with everybody? Okay, so Vaming.
Thanks, Juhi. It's good to be here, and it's great to hear from Tabitha, Felicia, Elaine, and Denise on their wisdom. I've been doing this work for over 10 years now, so I can be pretty jaded when it comes to all these issues. And so it's really great to hear from community leaders like our speakers today to really re-energize me, all their wisdom. And so I really appreciate that. But my comment is really pretty general. Thanks for allowing me to speak or asking me to speak. I appreciate that. I have this long relationship with the Alliance going back to 10 years ago when Ada was part of the Stop For Us coalition. And so this long relationship, currently we're part of the BRC. And, so the Alliance has been an important part of Ada's growth as an organization and for me personally. So really appreciate the fact that being part of BRC continues to increase Ada's capacity. Being a small organization, obviously we represent, or in some ways, the businesses, Asian businesses and low-income Asian communities that we work with. And as a small organization, we don't often have the opportunity or the capacity to amplify their voices. And so being part of a collaboration and coalition like the BRC really allows Ada to do that work, to achieve her mission, and just get our voice out there to decision makers. And over the last couple of years, Ada being part of the BRC has really allowed us to do that. And so, number one, the work of the BRC is so important. Being part of this group, that's very powerful, and you heard evidence of that from today's speakers. I just can't say enough about being part of it. We wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that we've done in the past couple of years without the BRC. Number one, including the resources that have come to Ada, and in actually delivering the services to the community. For instance, working with the BRC and helping folks access Ramsey County resources, for example, and that's really crucial. And we will continue to rely on partnerships like the BRC. There's all kinds of partnerships that you can get into, and some of them are very useful, more useful than others, and some of them are very effective. And the Alliance has been a key partner in terms of how effective we could be as a small organization. So I just want to bring that, throw that out there. And maybe I could address one of the things that we find particularly effective in working with BRC. It's really getting officials, decision makers to the table. And it's been key, I think, to get D to the table and to hear all of us through the BRC. When we had the Commissioner of D come to our meeting and listen to us, that I think is really powerful, and it's impacted a lot of the decisions that the state has made, the governor's offices have made, the legislature has made, and I want to say that it's allowed me to say things that I would not able to say in order to move the needle on equity issues. So the state allocated, is it $80 million for the Main Street Revitalization Fund? All of us at BRC had a key role in getting that done, getting that passed. It was a struggle. There was a lot of opposition, but that's one key victory I want us to celebrate. That $80 million that's now going to foundations and other groups around the state. We did it, and we had a big role in that. And I wanted us to recognize the work of the BRC. And so that's the kind of impact that we have when we work together. And I just really want to highlight that fact. And I don't think we've talked about that. Now that we have that money, the BRC, I think will continue to have an impact on that money will be used and dispersed and how it can get into the hands of small businesses. So I just want to highlight that fact. Thanks, Juhi, for letting me speak.
Yeah, thanks, Vaming. And I think that some of, us highlighting some of the wins we've had kind of have gone understated, But as you see the leadership we have, it's no doubt that that we're able to accomplish much. So if we could offer, if Denise, Elaine, Felicia, and Tabitha, if you want to offer your final thoughts, then we are nearing our time. But I have loved all of your comments, as I'm sure others have. And so thank you. Go ahead.
So I'll try to be real quick, because I know Tabitha is going to close us out like, wow. And so helping immigrants or Native entrepreneurs come together and be organized or collective or around their economics. So historically, you know, we've been doing things that we call a susu. And so what a susu is like, if you have a basket and we all come and we put our money in the basket together, and now that basket is our bank. And so, you know, the oppression that happened here in America didn't just happen here. It rightfully happened to, or wrongfully happened to, on the continent, unfortunately. And so when it comes to our community trusting each other, when it comes to financials and coming together, it's been difficult. But culturally, the way we have done it, it hasn't been seen, you know, in Western society or in the banking system as something that can be fun. And so someone, I think it's Sarah, says, you know, it's a reminder not to build what never worked or wasn't intended to work well for Black or brown people. So you told that susu, now they must become a cooperative, because now maybe they'll be a little bit more fundable. And so now when they're a cooperative, you still find reasons why you can't fund them, because, oh, you haven't been an entity for long, you don't have credit, this entity doesn't have credit. So stop telling me that I need to change and look and feel this way in order for your existing mechanisms to be able to support me. Again, find a way to create something new that I can sit as I am, look as I look, and still be able to get the necessary resource that I need to do what I need to do. So that's what I want to keep at the top of people's head. If anything out of this conversation, community knows how to come together, community knows how to create their solutions. And that's what it means when these group of 25 women came together and formed this cooperative. However, you, government entity, the ecosystem, have not been able to learn and understand how to be able to resource them where they are. Let's figure that out.
Since Tabitha is ending it and Elaine has seated, Felicia, would you like to share?
Take it on, Tabitha.
What a setup. Again, all of y'all are getting dedicated emails out. You know what? I actually think Denise nailed it, because I'm going to probably reiterate some of the things that she has shared. And really what I saw Elaine put in the chat, man, I'm grateful. I know Felicia and Denise is grateful, and certainly we're grateful to Juhi and Carolyn for this invitation, for another opportunity for our voices to be in this space. And what I want you to know is that I serve alongside these powerful women of color, not because I believe and not because they demonstrate a need for their voices to always be centered, but because they are holding a central truth about who we were always called to be, which is phenomenal and greater together, and not needing to continue to justify our existence because of the color of our skin or the nature of our ethnicity and our culture and the communities of which is just one aspect of our identity. What I'm going to go back to is what Denise is asking us all to do individually and collectively, is to understand that not all of our recipes are bad, but many of our recipes are broken. And that we can't continue to expect to get cookies or cakes when we're using a scone recipe. You can't continue to believe that we're going to have revitalized and transformative BIPOC community centers, commercial corridors, when we don't know the cost by which to achieve that aim. And so when you are in the room and have an opportunity to advocate on our behalf, I would encourage you to do this, to know the cost of inaction, and to know the cost of change. Because when we do not pat ourselves on the back for a $100,000 investment or a $100 million investment when we know $4 billion is necessary. I don't say this because I believe that even by these beliefs that I currently hold in collaboration with this particular group of partners is because I believe that I'm holding my breath for the sea change to occur on my watch. I know, and I am humbled by the fact that this service may not bring to fruition something that I believe, yes, I can see the fruits of our labor in that policy, in that allocation, in that change, in the way elected or appointed leaders approach their work, in the way that nonprofits humbly say, I am not equipped, I don't have the infrastructure to do that which you ask. I say all of this because I know that right now, each of us serve a purpose to act now, to hold our truth now, not to get off the gas to make each other comfortable, but to stay on the gas because we know that we can make each other better. We often talk about our municipal partners. Please know that we appreciate each and every person who raises their hand to serve. And yet we are called, our purpose is to help you to see a little bit more clearly as you help us to see more clearly, which is we have to move beyond mantra. We have to care more about more than propaganda. And we have to be committed to actually fund some, if not all, of the change that we know is needed. So we're grateful when you have the foresight to say it's an opportunity zone or a promise zone or an ACP 50 area of concentrated poverty where people identify more than 50% of people of color. That's fantastic. And when we don't then fund that truth, you will produce another report that aligns with another set of trends that only continues to remind me that we are not yet capable enough to fund our truth. And so it will take all of us. We are grateful for your time, but we actually need you to dig in and to be a part of the sea change that is needed, which is know our recipe.
Well, thank you. Those are powerful words to leave with. So I'll try not to put too many in between. You're leaving. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Denise, Tabitha, Felicia, and Elaine.